Hi, I'm Jesse. This is One Block at a Time, and this is Bond Street. So I used to work near here, and I've walked on Bond Street a million times. The reason it's named Bond Street is sort of lost to the distant past, although it might have been named after London's prestigious Bond Street. It's basically just 2nd Street between Bowery and Broadway. What makes Bond Street fascinating is its architecture. It has this huge array of architecture, from traditional, historically preserved buildings to really modern, bizarre buildings. And it's almost like a microcosm of New York in that way, in the diversity of the styles.
In recent years, it's been gentrifying to include some insanely priced buildings. Of course, lack of affordable housing is a real issue in New York, but I do love the weird mix of building styles.
So this building's really beautiful. This fence, and there's sort of a moat, no water, but it's kind of like a sunken alley here, is very cool. This building is home now to 2 very prestigious clothing stores. One is OVO, October's very own, which was founded by Drake and some other famous people. And one is Billy Reed. And they just have fancy stuff, and sometimes in the morning you'll see lines around the block to get into the building. Bond Street's usually pretty empty, and I think it's partly because of the cobblestone street, which cars are reluctant to drive on. It's not actually cobblestone, which are round. These are rectangular, which are called Belgian blocks. We're just going to start here on the eastern side of the street and walk west. Behind me, you can see a restaurant called Fish Cheeks, which is Thai seafood, and which I've always liked the awning of. I've never eaten there, but they have a really nice awning. Here's a restaurant, Il Buko, where I once saw Kirsten Dunst sitting outside eating. This building here is covered in beautiful plants and is fancy condominiums, which is a pattern we'll see a bunch of times on Bond Street. So this nice building here was built in 1910 and is also expensive apartments. One recently sold for $2.7 million. There's a lot of really nice detail on these arches on the outside of the building.
And now we can browse Dashwood Books, a literally underground store that features obscure photography and art books. It's a great place to browse. Then there's this weird thing, the real standout of the street. 40 Bond has apartments that have sold for as much as $7 million. Designed by world-renowned Swiss architect Herzog de Meuron, the description online touts each building material coming from a different country, like Barcelonian cast glass windows and Austrian wood-planked walls. Yeah, it's pretty over the top.
So this wavy, crazy part of the front of the building is inspired by New York graffiti. And apparently there's a graffiti art theme throughout the rest of the building. Some of the apartments have individually landscaped private gardens as well.
25 Bond is another fancy building. Will Smith and his family lived here. What's noticeable is the sidewalk artwork. Grooves have been carved into it. It looks like someone just dragged their finger through wet cement, but it's actually hand-carved into granite. The 2007 artwork is by Japanese artist Ken Hiratsuka, and it's a single continuous line matched by a sculpture in the window. Very cool.
And here's Goop, Gwyneth Paltrow's thing. It's temporarily closed, but this was called Goop Lab, so I think it was filled with scientists experimenting with goop, which I imagine has a wide range of applications, just like Flubber. And here's the Smile. This is a great little restaurant, sort of below ground. Just a wonderful place to meet up with people. And here's a weird red iron rusty mesh building. I swear every building on this street is as different from the others as possible. This corner building was the home and studio of Chuck Close, the famous artist. He passed away recently. I met him once at a book signing at Strand.
The newest addition to Bond Street is right here across Lafayette. It's, not my absolute favorite. Crossing Lafayette, we get to see this girl hopping down the street, and then this white building, which is absolutely stunning. It's the Robbins and Appleton building, built in 1879 in the Second Empire style. If you look closely, however, you can see that the building is actually split in two. The one I mentioned is on the right. On the left is a later building meant to mimic it, but it's a pale imitation of the detail and design. The better building on the right also hosts Blick Art, probably my favorite art supply store. It's a huge selection in a stunning space, all wood and incredibly high ceilings. Next to Blick are a couple of fancy schmancy stores. Here's a particularly nice outdoor eating area, and I'll let you listen to these guys' conversation. Lastly, I want to double back and look at the Jean Frankel Theater, founded in 1949. The historic 1893 building holds the most memorable piece of Bond Street, these golden statues dancing up the wall. This building has an artistic pedigree of 1, the theater, 2, the jazz musician Sam Rivers' Studio Rivbea loft in the 1970s, 3, the famous photographer Robert Mapplethorpe, who had a studio here in the 1980s, and 4, painter Virginia Admiral, a former owner who happens to be the mother of Robert De Niro. And then there's sculptor Bruce Williams, who's lived here with his wife for decades and created these glowing acrobatic revelers over the years starting in 1997. I got to meet Bruce when he came out to visit my drawing meetup group as we were sketching the unique architecture of Bond Street.
And that was Bond Street. Hope you liked it. Hope you get to visit. This was New York one block at a time. Like and subscribe. I appreciate it. And I'll see you soon.